least developed countries, LDCs, are developing countries listed by the United Nations that exhibit the lowest indicators of socioeconomic development. The concept of LDCs originated in the late 1960s, and the first group of LDCs was listed by the UN in its Resolution 2768, XXVI, on November 18, 1971. A country is classified among the least developed countries if it meets three criteria. Poverty, adjustable criterion based on gross national income, GNI, per capita averaged over 3 years. As of 2018, a country must have GNI per capita less than $1,025 to be included on the list, and over $1,230 to graduate from it. Human resource weakness, based on indicators of nutrition, health, education, and adult literacy. Economic vulnerability, based on instability of agricultural production, instability of exports of goods and services, economic importance of non-traditional activities, merchandise export concentration, handicap of economic smallness, and the percentage of population displaced by natural disasters. As of December 2020, 46 countries were still classified as LDC, while 6 graduated between 1994 and 2020. The World Trade Organization, WTO, recognizes the UN list and says that measures taken in the framework of the WTO can help LDCs increase their exports to other WTO members and attract investment. In many developing countries, pro-market reforms have encouraged faster growth, diversification of exports, and more effective participation in the multilateral trading system. LDC criteria are reviewed every 3 years by the Committee for Development Policy, CDP, of the UN Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC. Countries may be removed from the LDC classification when indicators exceed these criteria in 2 consecutive triennial reviews. The United Nations Office of the High Representative for the Least Developed Countries, Landlocked Developing Countries and Small Island Developing States, UNRLS, coordinates UN support and provides advocacy services for least developed countries. The classification, as of December 2020, applies to 46 countries. At the UN's 4th Conference on LDCs, which was held in May 2011, delegates endorsed a goal targeting the promotion of at least half the current LDC countries within the next 10 years. As of 2018, 10 or more countries were expected to graduate in 2024, with Bangladesh and Djibouti already satisfying all criteria in 2018. There is 1 country which presently meets the criteria and 2 countries which previously met the criteria for LDC status, but declined to be included in the index, questioning the validity or accuracy of the CDP's data. Ghana no longer meets criteria as of 1994, Papua New Guinea no longer meets criteria as of 2009, and Zimbabwe. There were 5 United Nations conferences on LDCs, held every 10 years. The first 2 were in Paris, in 1981 and 1991, the third was in Brussels in 2001. The 4th UN Conference on Least Developed Countries, LDC4, was held in Istanbul, Turkey, on 9–13 May 2011. It was attended by Ban Ki-moon, the head of the UN, and close to 50 prime ministers and heads of state. The conference endorsed the goal of raising half the existing least developed countries out of the LDC category in 2022. As with the Seoul Development Consensus drawn up in 2010, there was a strong emphasis on boosting productive capability and physical infrastructure, with several NGOs not pleased with the emphasis placed on the private sector. There are currently 46 economies designated by the United Nations as the least developed countries, LDCs, entitling them to preferential market access, aid, special technical assistance, and capacity building on technology among other concessions. These 46 LDCs are distributed among the following regions: Africa, 33 Angola, Benin, Burkina Faso, Burundi, Central African Republic, Chad, Comoros, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Gambia, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Lesotho, Liberia, Madagascar, Malawi, Mali, Mauritania, Mozambique, Niger, Rwanda, São Tomé and Príncipe, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Somalia, South Sudan, Sudan, Togo, Uganda, United Republic of Tanzania and Zambia. Asia, 9 Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Cambodia, Lao People's Democratic Republic, Myanmar, Nepal, Timor-Leste, and Yemen. Caribbean, 1 Haiti. Pacific, 3 Kiribati, Solomon Islands, and Tuvalu. The list of LDCs is reviewed every 3 years by the Committee for Development Policy, CDP, a group of independent experts that report to the Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC, of the United Nations. Following a triennial review of the list, the CDP may recommend, in its report to ECOSOC, countries for addition to the list or graduation from LDC status. During the triennial review that took place in February 2021, the CDP applied the criteria and the thresholds for inclusion into the LDC category and for graduation from the category as follows. An income criterion, based on a 3-year average estimate of the gross national income, GNI, per capita in United States dollars. The threshold for inclusion is $1,018 or below, the threshold for graduation is $1,222 or above. A Human Assets Index, HI, consisting of 2 sub-indices, a health sub-index and an education sub-index. The health sub-index has 3 indicators, I, the under 5 mortality rate, 2, the maternal mortality ratio, and 3, the prevalence of stunting. The education sub-index has 3 indicators, I, the gross secondary school enrollment ratio, 2, the adult literacy rate, and 3, the gender parity index for gross secondary school enrollment. All 6 indicators are converted into indices using established methodologies with an equal weight. The thresholds for inclusion and graduation are 60 or below and 66 or above, respectively. An Economic and Environmental Vulnerability Index, consisting of 2 sub-indices, an Economic Vulnerability Sub-Index and an Environmental Vulnerability Sub-Index. The Economic Vulnerability Sub-Index has 4 indicators, I, share of agriculture, hunting, forestry, and fishing in GDP, 2, remoteness and landlockedness, 3, merchandise export concentration, and 4, instability of exports of goods and services. The Environmental Vulnerability Sub-Index has 4 indicators, I, share of population in low elevated coastal zones, 2, share of the population living in drylands, 3, instability of agricultural production, and 4, victims of disasters. All 8 indicators are converted into indices using established methodologies with an equal the thresholds for inclusion and graduation at 36 or above and 32 or below, respectively. At each triennial review, all countries in developing regions are reviewed against the criteria. If a non-LDC meets the established inclusion thresholds for all 3 criteria in a single review, it can become eligible for inclusion. Inclusion requires the consent of the country concerned and becomes effective immediately after the General Assembly takes note of the committee's recommendation. No recommendations were made for inclusion at the CDP's 2021 triennial review. To graduate from the LDC category, a country must meet the established graduation thresholds of at least 2 of the criteria for 2 consecutive triennial reviews. Countries that are highly vulnerable, or have very low human assets, are eligible for graduation only if they meet the other 2 criteria by a sufficiently high margin. As an exception, a country whose per capita income is sustainably above the income-only graduation threshold, set at twice the graduation threshold, $2,444, becomes eligible for graduation, even if it fails to meet the other 2 criteria. LDC graduation. 6 countries have graduated from least developed country status. Botswana in December 1994. Cabo Verde in December 2007. Maldives in January 2011. Samoa in January 2014. Equatorial Guinea in June 2017. Vanuatu in December 2020. The CDP has recommended graduation from the LDC category for several countries in the past. Among them, Bhutan is scheduled for graduation in 2023, while Angola, São Tomé and Príncipe and Solomon Islands are slated for graduation in 2024. The CDP's 2021 triennial review recommended for graduation from the LDC category Bangladesh, Lao People's Democratic Republic and Nepal. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the committee recommended an extended preparatory period of 5 years, as well as careful monitoring and analysis of the impacts of the pandemic, and specific transition support. This recommendation was endorsed by ECOSOC Resolution 2021/11, issued on June 8, 2021, and by the General Assembly Resolution 76/8, issued on November 24, 2021. In the CDP's 2021 review of the list of LDCs, the following countries were found to have met the graduation thresholds for the first time: Cambodia, Comoros, Djibouti, Senegal, and Zambia. Djibouti met the income-only criterion, Comoros, Senegal, and Zambia met the graduation thresholds for 2 of the 3 criteria, namely income and human assets, and Cambodia met all 3 graduation criteria, income, human assets, and economic and environmental vulnerability. These countries will be reviewed again in 2024 and, if they meet the criteria for a second time, could be recommended for graduation. Kiribati and Tuvalu were recommended for graduation in 2018 and 2012 respectively, but ECOSOC deferred a decision on their graduation in 2018. In 2021 the CDP reiterated its recommendation of graduation but proposed a preparatory period of 5 years for these 2 countries. In Resolution 2021/11, ECOSOC, recalling its decision to defer the consideration of the graduation of Kiribati and Tuvalu to no later than 2021, recognized the unprecedented socioeconomic impacts of the COVID-19 global pandemic, and decided to defer the consideration of their graduation until 2024. Issues surrounding global trade regulations and LDCs have gained a lot of media and policy attention thanks to the recently collapsed Doha round of World Trade Organization, WTO, negotiations being termed a development round. During the WTO's Hong Kong ministerial, it was agreed that LDCs could see 100% duty-free, quota-free access to U.S. markets if the round were completed. But analysis of the deal by NGOs found that the text of the proposed LDC deal had substantial loopholes that might make the offer less than the full 100% access, and could even erase some current duty-free access of LDCs to rich country markets. Dissatisfaction with these loopholes led some economists to call for a reworking of the Hong Kong deal. Dr. Chiedu Osekwe, as of 2001 the Director, Technical Cooperation Division at the Secretariat of the WTO, and advisor to the Director General on Developing Country Matters, was appointed as the WTO Special Coordinator for the Least Developed Countries beginning in 1999. He worked closely with the 5 other agencies that together with the WTO constitute the Integrated Framework of Action for the Least Developed Countries. They addressed issues of market access, special and differential treatment provisions for developing countries, participation of developing countries in the multilateral trading system, and development questions, especially the interests of developing countries in competition policy. At the 28th G8 summit in Kananaskis, Alberta, Canadian Prime Minister Jean Chrétien proposed and carried the Market Access Initiative, so that the then 48 LDCs could profit from trade not aid. Additionally, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 14 advocates for an effective special and differential treatment of LDCs as integral parts of WTO fisheries subsidies negotiation. The 3 criteria, human assets, economic vulnerability, and gross national income per capita, are assessed by the Committee for Development Policy every 3 years. Countries must meet 2 of the 3 criteria at 2 consecutive triennial reviews to be considered for graduation. the Committee for Development Policy sends its recommendations for endorsement to the Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC. After the initiation of the LDC category, 6 countries graduated to developing country status. The first country to graduate from LDC status was Botswana in 1994. The second country was Cape Verde in 2007. Maldives graduated to developing country status at the beginning of 2011, Samoa in 2014, Equatorial Guinea in 2017, and Vanuatu in December 2020. Thank you for watching this video.